we'll do publishing, right?
Sure, publishing.
Publishing.
Tell us about your publishing.
Publishing. All right. I don't know that people actually know how they're going to end up in life. I studied art history and world religion mythology, and I thought the simplest thing and the best thing to do is be a teacher, because you get all those extra vacations, spring, Christmas, and summer. Like, that's a good deal. You hear in the modern world, people have to work and they get 3 weeks off a year and they build up to 5 weeks. What is that? Like, when do they get to live? Well, luckily I get to live in my work, so it's the same thing. So I couldn't get a job when I graduated from Sarah Lawrence because I hadn't learned to type. So that's when I learned filmmaking, knowing I'd never be a filmmaker because it's really hard. But I taught filmmaking at Dalton to little kids, these 12 to 14-year-old genius kids. But we were working on a major film. We did a lot of documentaries, our studio, called The Third World down on the Bowery. And then we also ended up making a big psychedelic film in Dayglow. I did the makeup. It meant I had to. It was Timothy Leary, and it was the Grateful Dead, and it was Charlie Mingus playing the Cisco Kid, and it was, people dressed up in Kachina costumes to be the spaceman. So anyway, we did film, and then one day, that's sick of film. There's a point at which you just can't face it anymore. It's such a hassle. And then people get into the idea of, well, my son is making a film right now, and he called me yesterday. He's doing it on a baptism. He's doing it for the Jordanian royal family. And he said, Mother, the sad part is we have to cut all the 45 interviews. We're just going to take little snippets. But it's the subtlety in the whole interview where it all comes through. And you can always put that on bonus footage. But that's where books come in. It's very nice to have, because with a book, you can reread it and hold it and go to bed with it and underline it and that whole deal. So anyway, I was married to a Venezuelan film director, and in '68, just as everybody was going to fight Mayor Daley in Chicago, we were in the middle of the Vietnam War. We'd just done the incredible Buddha show on the Lower East Side, which had moved to the West Coast. We did The Life of the Buddha as a multimedia experience, and it was really fun. We had on the stage a piece of clear, like white silk, the whole across the stage, and that was the human mind. That was Buddha's mind. And then we had Buddha with somebody named Bali Ram sitting in silhouette and with a little aura burning around him. And then first we had on the whole screen a pantomime of Buddha's seeing the old man, the dead man, the sick man, and deciding that he would go to find enlightenment, to get beyond suffering. So then we had Buddha sitting, and the whole screen was his consciousness. And meanwhile, we have Timothy Leary and Allen Ginsberg sitting off at the side with their bells and beads, and Tim saying, "Tonight we will take you into the consciousness of the Buddha as he reached enlightenment." And so we had over the screen first all the temptations. First, we filmed this girl just basically in jewelry dancing. We did it in many different colors, so you have her pink hand over her blue body, but Buddha burned strong. And then we had the demons. We filmed tarantulas, and we had them coming down the screen, and we had Tibetan thigh bone music, raw, and Buddha burns brightly, the whole scene. And then in the end, Buddha starts identifying with stuff, and we had, back then they used like 40 slide projectors. This is the 60s for you in New York. And the whole screen was covered with microscopic stuff and slides kind of melting and blopping. And then we went out to the insect level, and the whole screen was with every insect of the world, and they're all going, eh, eh, eh. And then you get to cats and dogs and elephants, raw. And then we had faces of people from the entire world all over the thing. So Buddha is just like going out, out, out. And then suddenly we got from the planetariums footage of the cosmos, and that is, all over planets doing stuff. And then Buddha reaches the limits of time and space, and pop, we had a huge strobe light, and we had falling over the audience, flower petals and gold and blue glitter, so they all got all covered. And there was incense, and then the great words, where Buddha says, "O wonder of wonders, all beings are the Buddha." It's what I was telling you before. Everything is just that divine essence. That's all. That's the Buddha nature, what we were talking about. Nothingness and everythingness. So then, there's sort of this beautiful sound of little, Indian music. That was so much fun to do. Anyway, we finally hit a limit with the Lower East Side in filmmaking, and so we sailed across the ocean to North Africa and drove to Cairo. This is how the publishing came about. And we had both been interested in Hinduism and Buddhism as methods of reaching the divine self. And we hadn't expected to find anything in Islam, but then we had read about the saints that live in North Africa, and we thought, imagine getting to sit at the feet of saints. So we reached Morocco, and every village has got someone sitting there, somebody who looks like Jesus, who's got a beautiful beard, who's silent, luminous, who's there, who is present, who has no ego. And then you sit with a person like that and you think, I'd like to be like that. But it's not like you read a description in a book. You want to be like nothingness. You want to be luminous. So we started trudging across North Africa, and we lived in Algeria. Our car broke in the desert, and this family took us in, this mechanic, and they gave us their only bed, and we lived with them for weeks while they fixed the car, and they gave us everything, and they were poor, and we reached Libya. It had a king. I was 9 months pregnant. Bedouins delivered my baby, with tattoos, which I sketched, and what else can you do? I mean, you were just there. And we met students who were studying in Libya from Yugoslavia, from Nigeria, from the Philippines, and we started realizing the Islamic world wasn't just Arabs. That's only 17% of the Muslim world. We met all these wonderful people. And then finally we reached Egypt, and it was still being bombed from the '67 war. And we lived there for 10 years in the company of kids, like from France and Japan and Italy, people just like us who were sort of not ex-hippies, but people who were really looking to finally find a solid ladder that they could climb to get to the divine within, that really took you there. And in Egypt, there are like 1 million Sufi masters, and every night you could go to some place where people are all gathered around a saint, and you have CEOs of company and taxi cab drivers all sitting together, and everybody acknowledges that this is the reality behind all the material successes. So we stayed in Egypt for 10 years, and our son was born there. And my husband worked also for NBC television and shooting the news. And then he went to Saudi Arabia and worked there as well. And then in about 1978, we realized, the whole world has got it wrong about the Islamic world. Well, look at it today. Look at what your opinion must be just from the news. You see a few terrorists doing things, and you take them to be the whole. There's 17 million people in Egypt. We've never seen anything like what you see on the news. And yet everyone, I don't want to go to Egypt. What would happen? But actually, it's really heartbreaking to see an entire fifth of the world's population, the Muslims, who are great, being identified with these creeps that have gone nuts, are so exoteric. They've lost their inner self. So we decided that maybe the thing we ought to do, back then it wasn't as bad as it is now, we decided the thing we wanted to do was to go into publishing. And we thought, what we'll do is we will get a grant of some sort. We'll move to England. So we moved to Cambridge and lived on a farm originally. And we will get scholars from America, from Japan, from the whole world over to retranslate the great classics of Islamic spirituality. Because although many of them existed in English, when the British went out and colonized North Africa, colonized the Muslim world, they had to justify doing that to people. And so many of their scholars, who were referred to as Orientalists, translated a lot of these materials, but with a nasty edge, like, hating the Prophet Muhammad, making fun of it, translating, but always taking the translation that would make them look weird rather than all right. So we decided to go into correcting that image, because here we had been living there for 10 years and going every year. We made films. We went around the Muslim world. We visited the Muslims in Indonesia, in China. So we went to Arabia every year, Jordan, everywhere. And you know what? It's just a lot of nice people living everywhere. Everybody is just like you and me. They're just putting dinner on the table, trying to get their kids through school. So we decided to make a dent in that.